Welcome back to episode 5. It's just me and Josh today of the Off the Cuff podcast because Tom has prior engagements. We're recording from the safest place in the world because London, as we've just both found out, is absolutely dead. It's 50,000 people used to live here.
There's a ghost town.
It's one of them ones. I just tried to get breakfast in 2 different places and they've both shut, and not because there's any rules. As we sit here today, no rules have actually been announced, so it's just pure scaremongering. I actually kind of understand it. Someone asked me if I wanted to go out for a drink this week, and I was like, I don't mind, but it's got to be quiet because I actually don't want to get COVID.
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of people have got it. Have you heard of many?
No, because I don't watch the news. I've been in Mauritius for 2 weeks. I've just been keeping my head in the sand.
What about clients or like friends or family members?
No, nothing. Honestly, I've had near to nothing. Even since the whole Megatron Omicron was floating around, I've not really heard anything of people getting it. Even though we're 30,000 higher than like the peak before per day of cases. I've not heard too much, but I also don't go looking for it too much. Kind of just stayed away from it.
That's fair enough. I've had 2 clients this week and 1 friend all test positive, and I had 1 friend who I was with last weekend test positive. I'm negative. I've been doing LFTs each day, so I'm good.
Yeah.
My dad's a bit like, if I was going home for it, and then we're seeing my grandparents. But yeah. So you just got back from Mauritius. How was it?
Just got back from Mauritius. It was bloody lovely. I think you're going to know this more than anyone now that you've kind of turned to this self-employed life. You really take, like, that was the first week in 52 weeks. Beyond maybe a week in Dubai, like when we were there in January, that I took off and did not respond to messages and did not have check-ins and did not... Okay, I did a little bit with one of mine, the backstory, because we are constantly getting deliveries. So, but like, you know what, flicking your phone on when you're on the beach is not too much of a big deal. But taking that week off first week off in 52 weeks, I was absolutely stonked that first 4 days. I probably slept 16 hours.
Wow.
Just was out cold. Like for 12 hours sleep at night, 2 or 3 hour kips on the beach in between.
Oh.
And
that's dreamy.
Yeah, just did nothing. Literally did nothing for like 6 of the days, first 6 days, and then we started doing things around.
Unreal.
Yeah.
How did you? That's an interesting one. We said we might not talk too much about Christmas because when you hear this, it might be quite far beyond. But I've had a conversation with my guys about some downtime over Christmas. So obviously, you just as an online coach, how do you approach that with your client base, as in the holiday, but maybe run into Christmas as well?
As in, for what do I do? It's a hard one. I think it's when you're so, especially when it comes to running a couple of businesses, but also for me, like the bodybuilding comes number 1, and just kind of switch that off for once a week, for once a year, or maybe a couple of times a year if you're lucky. I personally find it's very, very beneficial to just cover complete switch off. It doesn't necessarily float that well mindset wise. Like, you know what it's like when you go away, you lose fucking a stone. That's what happened. I lost a stone. I was 123 before I came back. I was 117 this morning.
Wow. 6
kilos, and I was at an all inclusive, did whatever I wanted all day, every day. So that was the hardest part of doing it. But honestly, like, you got to set yourself up. If you're running businesses, you've got to set up the processes to make sure that when you're away, the business keeps running. I let all my clients know 3-4 weeks in advance, like, this is going to be the week off. There's going to be no messages unless it's emergencies, which there wasn't any. With one of my, everything was just literally just updating stock, so it wasn't too bad. I have people that run the customer service side of things anyway, so that was all set up, and it was just like, I find if you are all in on something, to be able, the ability to be all out and is quite valuable, because there's very little times that you're all out. So when you are, take it.
100%. Yeah, it's I understand the 1MR thinking sort of run itself. It's often the coaching. For me, I've always struggled a little bit. I can think of, 1 week, and it was around this time last year, whereby I said to my clients, I'm going to have a bit of downtime. I think it was 5 days. I always run 5 days because check-ins run from Monday to Friday. So I have to make sure everyone gets the same sort of treatment. And I've done the same for the gap between Christmas and New Year, and I think that's quite a good time to do it because people are going to have a couple of days off anyway. I've still asked them to track, but I've asked them not to send me. I don't want to load a message. I'm still going to be contactable, but just a chance to not have to get up and the first thing I have to think about is, oh fuck, how many check-ins I've got to do.
Yeah.
Which I'm quite looking forward to. No doubt it'll make me feel a bit lost. I can already feel it, but the fact that I'll be able to sort of get up, have a meal, go train, and just chill out for a week is really valuable. And I think you said to us in the group about just feeling like fired up and ready. Well, you might have said it on Instagram actually, just like fired up and ready to go now.
That's it. You know, like you run that tank empty all year. You run that red line because when you're trying to be the best at things and trying to run businesses to, you know, ultimately set you up for life, like you run that red line because that's what we do, you know. So the ability to just sit back and really feel like I feel it, like my joints feel good, my mindset's good, you know, that lack of motivation, that lack of aggression, that lack of mental sharpness all started to fade towards the end, you know. And I noticed that filter out into my training, filter out into my business, filter out into my other businesses, and for a couple of weeks before that, and I knew it was time just to back on up.
Yeah, it's good. It's good to be able to. I think that particularly with coaching, because it is always on. It is always on.
Always something to do.
It's like you might clear your WhatsApp, but then someone else has got a question or a check-in. So it's nice to almost like sit back. And I wonder did you have any sort of times of reflection and like gratuity while you're away, while you had a bit of space to think about what you've achieved and like where things are at, and what you've built, and just because you know when you get so like nailed into something, you start really taking some things for granted. Like I can imagine that every coach at time has moaned about a client or a check-in or whatever, and you really have to sit back and think, no, hang on a minute. Yeah. Did you have any minutes where you just had some time to think?
Yeah, multiple times. Just to sit back and talk about the year, and I mean, not even just the year, the last 5 years where my life has completely flipped upside down, and for the better, and like, yeah, that overwhelming sense of gratuity and also like pride. Like I'm proud. Yeah, I'm proud of fucking what I've done. Like it's crazy, you know. Like obviously the boys know a little bit more of the ins and the outs of what's going on behind the scenes with how, you know, well we've built the company and whatnot, but like I was proud, like I was there, like, and it's a little easier to feel proud when you're sat in Mauritius, of course, like, and you've done that yourself. But yeah, like there was some real senses of like, I'm proud of this, I'm gratitude. I've got so much gratitude for being in the position I am, but that hunger just comes back in. I'm like, right, let's get the next step on the go.
100%. Yeah, that's very, very sick. Where does Mauritius rank in the leaderboard of destination?
Yeah, I've been so lucky over my life to come to some amazing places. It's number three. It's number 3 behind the Maldives, which was number 2 by a very, very slight margin, but that was because it's held a lot of sentimental value. Of that was my first thing where I was like, right, I paid for the whole thing. Took me and my girlfriend there. You know, we flew business class. We really did the whole thing to try and do it special. And then the first holiday that me and my girlfriend had ever been on was Thailand and Cambodia, which was a lot cheaper. We like stayed in a presidential suite, but it was like 180 quid a night. Like, so like we live really good, because Asia is so much cheaper, but it was the perfect combination of adventure, sun and whatever. But, you know, it was worse than Thailand, Cambodia and Maldives. Like, it's still unbelievable place to go. Highly recommend you go.
Yeah, man, that sounds good. It's funny, I've had two or three people from my personal life have been in Maldives recently while you've been in Mauritius. I actually think yours looked, I'm purely talking about the weather, but I think you got really good weather. I think the Maldives looked a bit cloudy. I don't know if you they still all looked amazing.
That whole like Indian Ocean kind of weather climate is strange, because you'll look at the weather app and it will say rain 5 days in a row, but it means it's going to rain at some point in that day 5 days in a row. So you kind of get a lot off. But we had perfect weather, like pretty much all of it.
Decent. That's one of the questions I actually got from someone was top 3 holiday destinations you've been and destinations you want to go. Where would you want to go if you've not been? Or maybe you could go again.
I would want to tick the Seychelles off. So I've done the full kind of Indian Ocean islands. Australia has got to be a big one. Australia, New Zealand, and Bora Bora. Bora Bora.
Decent. My top 3 destinations, I would say, in what particular order?
Bali?
I
Oh, that's another one on my list.
I look back on Bali because I look back with great fondness. When we were there, I think we weren't as grateful at the time, and it was because the whole like Instagram versus reality thing with Bali. You might have got that in Thailand, I'm sure you did. Is whereby you look in front of you and there's like this picturesque, beautiful picture that someone's taken on Instagram, but just to the right is like a building site. It's really weird. It was a very cool place. It as a total package, it probably would go into my top 3. My other 2 would be Courchevel. Just incredible. Like we got so lucky. Like it dumped 5 days of snow. We landed. It stopped.
Was that Chateau Benjamin?
Yeah, man. Chalet Benjamin.
Chalet Benjamin.
And it was the blue skies and the white powder, and that was unreal. Once again, another holiday I would almost want to redo because I didn't live it to the fullest because I was like 7 weeks out.
Yeah, I remember that.
But that was incredible. And then the other place, probably at the moment that I've been to, probably would be like Miami. I really loved it there. Like again, I was on my own.
You're on prep, yeah.
I just got so many vibes from it. Like it was unreal. It seemed to have everything. Like it had the cool city. It had the cool city. It had the like the beach. Everything. I thought it was just so sick. There was like the glam, but also kind of the grittiness of it. Shopping, beaches, like the sea. It just reminded me a bit of Dubai as well in terms of like the yachts everywhere, and it just oozed like I thought it oozed class, that place in some parts. I'd have to give an honourable mention to Dubai as well, just the pure vibes it's given me over the last I know you're probably just bored of it, but I remember when I sort of first got there, and some of the first times I experienced things like just driving around at night and looking up at this like Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I was just like, this is just incredible.
It just looks like a movie, a video game.
Literally looks like a video game. So honourable mention for Dubai, and then in terms of where I want to go, probably obviously Maldives is on there, Australia and New Zealand. Let's put them into one. And then I'm quite, I don't know if this goes into top 3, but it's like South America. I want to go to like Argentina and Chile. Probably when I'm a bit fitter and I can like do
the Inca Trail.
Yeah, because obviously now I'd just be, it would fuck me up.
We fucking, in Mauritius we did this, I say mountain. It was more like a very big hill.
Mountain.
And it absolutely bollocked me. Like we probably got about 75% of the way up. You can walk 70. It's called Le Morne for anyone who's been to Mauritius or goes to Mauritius. 100% do it. Like it's a hard trail. I mean, maybe it's not hard for other people. We've got about 75% of the way up, which you can pretty much walk. Fairly steep at periods times, but you can pretty much walk. Maybe about 15,000 steps, but it's just like uphill the whole way. I was absolutely just rinsed. I was getting cramp where I'd just been sweating so much. I was like firing in like 3-4 bananas, just trying to get myself back to equilibrium. And then the final 25% is like you have to clamber, you have to really scramble.
Really?
And I said this is just not safe for me to do. It's just not. It's not clever. It's not big. I just should not be climbing up this because these little people just running up there, and everyone will come down and say it's amazing, but yeah, that's really really difficult. And everyone said but. Because we were waiting like 75%. It's like a little seating area where we were just drinking, we were preparing ourselves to go up the final 20%. People come down, you'd hear them go, yeah, it was nice, but... and you know when this is like consistent buts.
Yeah.
So I was like, right, I couldn't do it. Because it took us so long to get up anyway. It took us 2 hours to get to that 75% point. Had to walk back down and do the ascent. I was like, this is just going to buckle me.
That's where you lost that 6 kilos. Just on.
Yeah, 100%.
It never came back on.
Absolutely dripping.
I bet, yeah, I can imagine that absolutely finish you off. I think I got like a few topics, but yeah, if you want to just back and forth it.
Yeah. So we got questions, guys. We put some questions out on our Instagram. We're just going to go back and forth, find some good ones. Most likely, a lot of them are going to be more bodybuilding orientated. We are the bodybuilders of the group. We're the IFBB pros, so we'll probably talk about them.
No lifestyle shit today, Tom.
Yeah. Do you want to go first?
Well, I just asked that holiday one, so
okay,
I'm happy to find one. But yeah.
There's a lot here that are comparing us as a two.
Okay.
So steroids and work ethic aside, who would each of you say is more genetically gifted?
I think I have the slight edge in terms of genetics, but I don't know. You know, I used to think a lot differently about this a few years ago, and now I think less so. I think I'm genetically gifted in the areas that matters for maybe men's physique, but then again I think I'm also not. This is a tricky one. My first answer would be me, but when I think about it deeply I'm a bit more like I'm not so sure, you know.
Yeah.
What would you say?
I find it difficult. So my first reaction would be you. My reasonings for that is just generally like I feel like you gain muscle quicker. I feel like you build muscle a lot easier than I do. And those fucking arms are just like something that I'm never gonna like achieve, which I need as part of my physique. The only way that I could justify myself maybe edging closer to that genetic thing is saying that you've been on gear a little bit longer than me. Like that's the only way that I could justify it. But like for like you guys have your own judgments when you look at our pictures, but you got to see us in person next to each other, and you realize that Joe is a much larger human being and fills in those gaps a lot better than I do. So
it's funny you say that, because I, particularly over the last couple of years, I think, since we've seen each other more regularly and been training with each other, when I like give you a hug and stuff, I'm like, this guy's fucking massive. And when like I walk behind Josh in the gym, I'm just like, fucking hell, because I think, am I that big?
I'm thinking the exact same.
It's so funny. This is the whole thing with bodybuilding. I think that dysmorphia thing, it just cracks me up. The reason I would mark myself down, I think, is because if I could take your back, I would take it any day. And I don't know if this is because I've just not gotten there yet, but I think you have that natural dryness that I've not always managed to get to. And that's one of the things that like that got me this year. And I don't know if that like I was definitely the most peeled this year than I've ever been. And I know that stress took a lot of a big toll on me. The fact that Cal wasn't there, I didn't have anyone sort of micromanage me. But someone commented on one of my posts or one of my videos, and it like it didn't really bother me, as they don't really bother me. But it's something along the lines of like you've done all this, or you were a pro and you still weren't as lean as Josh, or you still didn't peak as well as Josh, and all this stuff. And I was like, it's fucking true, man. I was like, I looked at your pics from Portugal, and then from when you won your card, and I was just like, that's like he looks incredible. Like I don't think I could have I wouldn't have said Josh could have done this better or this better. Whereas I look back at all of my shows this year and I'm like, I could have been better here, my tank could have been better. And I just think it all came together for you this year.
It did,
as it has a lot of times actually, but in terms of like this time it all came together with the size as well. So that's something I think that you have an edge on me on, but again, it's hard to know whether I've just not dug hard enough.
It's so difficult. Like that's the issue with these questions about genetics. You can get caught up in it. Genetics to eat more food, genetics to get lean quick, genetics to get grainy, genetics to grow bigger arms. There is so many levels to genetics that it's like it's almost immeasurable. Almost
100%. It is. You can put like you can take a guide from it and like understand if someone's got potential. But then when you're trying to split hairs, which I think we're trying to do here, is very, very difficult. Good question though. Interesting. I like that. Right. I will ask one. So someone's asked us. We will do this one because a lot of people will, I think, be asking to understand it. How did you two overcome putting yourself on socials and caring what people thought? I think we've answered this before, but let's go into it a bit more here.
Yeah. So we probably got different stories as well. So I started just by posting myself really at university, and I had very, very good friends who were very supportive of whatever we all wanted to do individually. We all like supported it. You know, we had one footballer, one engineer, one guy on social media, and we'd all just like rally together and try like put in ideas for what we could help to each other. So I was in a very, very supportive environment. The only hate that I ever got was from people I didn't know. You know, so that made things a lot easier. And I know that people get faced with like their mates going, "What are you doing?" You know, and that's where it's probably going to cut a little bit deeper. But a lot of it is just like, you know, putting yourself in that uncomfortable position, and the more often you're in that uncomfortable position, you get more comfortable with it, right? No one's going to start off very good. No one in this world started off good at social media. You know, it's very, very difficult to be good at social media. It takes years of practice. And if you're not good at it naturally, it takes even more years, you know. So I had a very supportive upbringing, and it just kind of grew naturally, and I got more comfortable in front of a camera than like talking to friends and stuff like that, or talking to my girlfriend or something.
I noticed that with you actually, when we knew each other, when we didn't really know each other, but when the first few times I met you, I remember because obviously I watched YouTube before, and I was like, oh, you fucking talk for England, this guy. And then in person, it was a different story.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're way more like comfortable with each other now. But I do remember thinking that. And I think that's normal of like probably quite a lot of people that make it like big on YouTube or whatever.
100%.
Like you say, you just get comfortable talking to a camera. It becomes easy. My setup was slightly different, but I will say that, and I realised this the other day. I went back on in fact, one of my friends from uni tagged me on an old video of mine on my personal profile. So I used to do some really weird stuff that I think now would like bang on TikTok, and I've just not got the balls to do it now. So the first thing I say is like I really didn't care really very much about what people thought back then, particularly on socials. I found myself a bit of a joker, so I wasn't really worried about like people caring, which I know is a really unhelpful answer, but what I will say is I was actually encouraged to do it. So I didn't post anything until after my very first competition, when someone told me like, you need to get on Instagram, and I was like, all right, okay. So I kind of did it because I was like, this could be an opportunity for me. In terms of how I didn't care, I just tried to like provide some information and some value. I think like Josh said, like people are always gonna like, either A, people always will hate, but B, most people actually don't care enough to, and I think it's one of them things where it's like, I've learned this as the years have gone on, the people that do care enough to make a negative comment, like I actually just feel a bit sorry for them, like particularly now, like because I'm really happy with where I'm at, and I look back and I'm proud of what I've done. So when someone comments something negative, I just feel sorry for them, because I'm like, and I know that's a really like wanky answer, but it's so true, man.
What place have you got to be in to take time out of your day to not only comment, but you've found the picture or the video, you've then clicked on the comments, you've then thought out what you're going to say to try and put them down, and then you've said it. You've got to be in a bad place.
100%. And like for that, I think I said it in a previous one, like just send that person love or ignore them if you want. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. I think the in the grand scheme of things, you will find someone will relate to what you said to them, regardless of what point of your journey you're on, whether it's like a fat loss journey, whether it's a muscle gain journey, whatever it is. Like someone's going to probably be quite related to it and be happy that you posted. It's like in a big crowded room when everyone's a bit nervous to ask a question.
Oh yeah.
Someone finally puts their hand up and asks this question, and then
nice.
There's like 3 or 4 other people that are like, oh, thank fuck they asked that. I wasn't going to ask that. Yeah. So it's one of them ones. I think it is it's the same answer each time, and it's like, do you want to just keep being scared, or do you want to crack on? Because quite often in life, what you are scared of is an idea in your head and actually not what's going to happen. Like, is it going to hurt if you post and you don't get any likes? Is it going to hurt if you post and someone makes a bad comment? Probably not, but it might get you a bit closer to your goal of growing a profile or growing a business or whatever it is your end goal is. So I would say put that aside and look at the bigger picture, really.
Yeah, I would agree. I'll take it down a notch.
Over to you.
I'll take it down a notch. We'll bro it up a little bit here.
Go for it.
I always like to be a little bit careful about these questions, but cycle comparisons to when we both won our pro cards. So my pro card season and your pro card season, because you actually weren't with Cal then, right? So I'm assuming that your cycle design was a little bit different.
Yeah, it probably was. Mine, oh god, I have to try and remember it now. You tell me yours, because I'm going to look at my messages. So
off the top of my head, and you're all going to go, oh shit, you guys take a lot of shit. Yeah, we do. That's the way it is. You want to be a pro, you got to take stuff. I'll do the finishing numbers, and guys, I tape it up to this. I've been using for 3 or 4 years. I in no way, shape or form recommend anyone to do this. No one should ever do this. You know, if you're going to do this with someone who understands these chemicals, can sort you out properly, and ultimately understand that you're going to be killing yourself by doing this stuff. I don't want to bullshit anyone and say that, or I don't want to glorify any of this use, but the peak of it was 450 test, 600 primo, 100 tren, 50 Winstrol, 50 Anavar, T3, T4, just at a replacement dose. Clen, you don't need to know the dose, but I was using Clen as well. What else would I use? Primo,
600.
Primo, and Mast at 300. So about 1.4 grams a gear.
Damn.
Yeah.
Right, I've got mine up here. I think I was on Oh, he did that annoying thing.
Oh, you got it saved?
Oh, I've got it in...
Still in WhatsApp?
I've got it in Mills, though. Which is... This isn't going to help me. I'm going to have to probably go and work this out. But I was on half a mil of test prop every day. Half a minute.
Which is probably like a 200 meg, isn't it?
Prop would have been
100 meg a day.
Yeah, so
700.
Probably 600 or 700 test prop. Half a mil master on
Every day.
No wonder my hair fell out. So probably six. Let's say 600 test prop, 600 mask prop. 50 milligrams of Winnie, 50 milligrams of VAR, 1.5 tabs of T3 every morning, and then Clen every day as well. I think that was at 80 micrograms. For complete disclosure, I did use Tren at some point in that prep as well. I think I was on 75 meg a week for 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So
it's like total milligram usage is probably pretty similar.
Yeah, it's actually not bad when I think back. Yeah. I was actually, and funnily enough, I think I don't know what changed between my pro carb winning prep and this year, but like my abs were just way more dug out in that prep.
In that prep, really?
Yeah. I look back, I completely lost faith in myself at one point in that last prep. And I was like, what's happened to my midsection? And I was like, maybe I've actually got really shit abs. And I thought that for a second. And I was like, hang on, let me look back. And I looked back at like my stage photos from that prep, and I was like, no, I haven't. I've got like a decent set of abs, so I don't know what's going on. So I think it was stress. Obviously, the only other thing that I can think of is like some growth has gone in. I've definitely not got growth belly, but like, is there some...
For me, like, because I know that dry, fucking grainy feeling from even when I was natural, I was like that. I didn't feel like that until I started my peak week, and I went, oh shit, that's fucking saran wrapped. But at no point did they feel saran wrapped during the whole prep until we started manipulating water and actually pulled the water out hard. And actually I didn't have water left, like that Portugal show. I looked like I had fucking blocks on, and I was like, my abs have never looked like this.
Yeah, I remember looking at it thinking, that's what I fucking needed, some abs like that. Yeah. That's why I think you've got a really good potential to do well in the pro leagues, because the first thing I noticed, or one of the main common denominators between every show I did and between the top 6, well, they all had great abs. And there was one guy who the second and third show I looked at him and I was like, sorry, but you look like shit, with respect. There's no respect there whatsoever. I mean, I can't say shit because I came like 16th and he came top 5, but his posing I thought was rigid and horrible. His physique was not big. I didn't think his delts were good. I didn't think he had a nice taper, but he had this perfect 6-pack. And I'm dead sure that's why they kept putting him in the top 6. On it, yeah. So I was just like, fuck, like, that's where I'm coming down. And that's, I think I've kind of realised, and I think I've probably gotten a bit lazy with ab training, which I'm not now, because now I'm doing it like 3-4 times a week just to try and make sure that I have got it next year. Yeah. But that's why, that's one reason why I think like
stress is a killer though as well.
Yeah,
and I think you were absolutely ruined.
Yeah, I was fucked. But that's the reason why I think you could do really well, which would be interesting to see and quite cool, I think. Right. Let's have another one. I think this is quite good because I think we'll have different answers here. Have you ever thought about nearly quitting when you were both so close to your IFBB Pro status?
Nah. Didn't even slip in.
What if you didn't get it this year?
You know what? Like, I just didn't even put that in my brain. I did not even. The only things that I was thinking about is, what's the next show going to be if I don't win this weekend? That's the only thing. I wasn't thinking about next year, because I knew in my head, after that first show and I didn't win that guy, I said, if that guy's winning, I'm going to win. I'm going to win at some point. So the only thing I was thinking about was what the next show was. So I was like, right, if I miss Alicante, I got to go to Russia. If I miss Russia, I got to go here. But at no point was I like, nah, this isn't for me. Didn't slip in at any point.
Decent, that's good. I've always been quite honest about this. I was in a very different place to Josh when I won my pro card, because I was still working at John Lewis full time. And a big part of me was like, am I going to keep killing myself for this? Because when you're amateur, you're actually just, I didn't have a load of money either. I was just like hemorrhaging money, trying to save for a house at the same time. Hemorrhaging money, finishing my show on a Sunday, getting home, probably having one day off to literally scrub my tan off and then going back to work on a Tuesday. And I had to really consider, like, is this worth it, or do I just start chasing a more corporate career? So I wouldn't say I thought of quitting. Like, at no point whilst I was prepping did I think, oh, I'm going to fucking pack this in. Because I was much like Josh. It was like, well, I'll just do the next show. As much as my finances allowed it, I would have kept doing that. But I did openly say, if I didn't win it that year, that would have been me done. I wouldn't have gone back the next year. I would have packed it in there and then, because it wasn't the trade off at that point wasn't worth it. But similar to what you just said, in terms of, like, there was a point where I knew I was going to win.
Yeah,
and that was when
second right at that Europa show.
When I got into that, the one in Benidorm, when I was in
the Italian guy one.
Yeah, when I was
went to the Olympia that year.
Yeah,
didn't he win the?
Oh no, not him. That was my first ever year. That was the one that sort of gave me a glimmer of hope. The one where I was like, I'm gonna win in the next few weeks, was in Benidorm when I won my class against some fucking really good people. I was pretty fucking shocked, actually. I remember getting there with one of them ones where I was like, Dad. My dad was there. I was like, Dad, they're fucking massive, mate. I was like, I ain't got a fucking chance. And I probably beat myself up, and I was like, right, just get your tan on and pump up. And I looked unreal. That's still probably my favourite look of all time, is that Benidorm Big Man Weekend one. But I won my class, and then I went into overall, and I got put in the middle with the winner, and he won. I broke down like a little bitch because I thought I had it. I remember crying like a baby. I was like, when are they going to pick me? But it was at that point.
I feel that, though.
It was at that point when I was like, I know I'm going to turn pro, and I'm going to do it in 2 weeks when I go to Denmark. So yeah, slightly different answers, but along the same lines, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
What's next?
Darren Farrell. He says, success in business or success in bodybuilding?
Oh, fucking hell.
It obviously depends on your definition of success, but...
So I assume you mean, like...
Would you rather be... I mean, it's quite hard because they will inevitably be intertwined.
Yeah.
Like, if you're a successful bodybuilder, you're going to have money, you're going to have business.
Unless you're real dumb.
Yeah.
And no one helps you out.
Yeah.
So I would say success in business.
Yeah.
Which is probably the less pure answer. But it's the sensible answer, in my opinion.
100%.
Like, you can only do so much with success in bodybuilding, and ultimately it's going to kill you. Whereas success in business will have the complete opposite effect on your life and everyone else's life around you. But like Josh has said, they're heavily, heavily intertwined. Yeah. I think you can have success in... No, to be fair, you can have both. Or you can have one without the other. But I think we both started bodybuilding because we loved bodybuilding, and we still bodybuild because we love bodybuilding. As time's gone on, I realised that bodybuilding it supplements my business growth, or it helps my business growth, and therefore it continues up until a point whereby I'm no longer happy to do it.
Yeah.
But at the moment, like, I still do this shit because I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
And even in times when I'm like, fuck, like, I'm not going to be as good as I wanted or whatever, I still default back to it because it's like, it now, unfortunately, or fortunately, is who I am as a person.
Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I think it's quite a hard question because you're never going to be faced with that ultimatum, especially in the position that we're in right now. Like, being a bodybuilder isn't necessarily time demanding. Like, you do, other than like, you need to eat and you need to train. Like, it's not necessarily time demanding. So you're always going to have that time to do something business wise. And like, you look at the top bodybuilders, like let's say Nick Walker, like, he actually doesn't do anything. He is a bodybuilder, but probably makes 50 grand a month or something, right? Because he's just like, he's always going to have a representative of a brand or whatever. So like Joe said, they're heavily intertwined. But I always said it, I'm going to do the stupid route. Like, I've always said it, like, I will put bodybuilding first before everything. I will drop every single bit of business I've got to be able to get what I need to get. Like, I want to live in glory. I want that legacy. I want to achieve the unachievable. I want to be one of them people who let it all on the line and went for that thing that's been fixated in my brain since I knew what an IFBB Pro was, since I knew what the Olympia was. But I'm never going to be faced with that ultimatum, which is kind of nice.
It's interesting. I think there's two sort of bits of context I think are important with my answer. Number one, as far as I understand, you still don't want kids or a family, do you?
No.
So I do. So family's like really, really important to me, and therefore hopefully that makes some sense in terms of like me being a bodybuilder is not really going to help my family. In fact, it might kill my chances of having one. Whereas success in business will be able to support them and bring them up, and that's always been something that I've held quite close to me. And then the other thing is, in terms of realism, I can honestly, hand on heart, say I know I'm never going to be Mr. Olympia. I was never going to be Mr. Olympia in men's physique, and I'm never going to be Mr. Olympia until C-Bum quits in classic physique, and I'm pretty sure he's younger than me. So I'm probably never going to be Mr. Olympia, but that doesn't mean that just because like I'm not going to be the best in the world, that I'm still not going to give it a good fucking go, because I enjoy doing it, and there's still opportunity for second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, and so on. And that's how I see it.
Fair enough.
Decent. I reckon you do another one, because I haven't got as many as you.
Yeah, no worries. This one's about Tom. So why is, and this is no disrespect, of course, but people often ask this, and he often gets this, and there's a very clear answer. Why is TM Cycles so underdeveloped compared to others of his training / steroid age? So he's actually taken steroids longer than both me and Joe. But of course, like, we both have progressed physically a little bit more. I think there's a pretty clear answer. Like, we've both used maybe double the gear that he has, for one. We've both pushed things food-wise and training-wise harder than he has, and he's openly said that, and openly said that he's not trying to be Mr. Olympia, he's not trying to be a pro. He was one of the first guys ever to start talking about steroids in the UK, from my knowledge. He was one of the first people on YouTube talking about it in the UK. Like, he's done a lot for the steroid scene, like, initially to get into it, because he was the first person who started talking about proper cycles, really. Even if that kind of narrative has changed a little bit. He's never tried to push things like that, you know? Like, even in the off-season, like, his food doesn't go up to 6,000 calories, 7,000 calories, which we've pushed up before, because he's not ready to put all those things on the line. He is very much... it's his hobby. It's what he likes to do as a part-time thing. So a lot of people like try and jump on him and say, oh, like, even when I was natural, they were trying to say that I outdid him here and there, and he's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, he's not trying to do that, whereas that's all I'm trying to do. Every aspect of my life was to try and be the best bodybuilder that I can, or still is. Whereas for him, like, you know, he was had that member sites for 4 or 5 years, absolutely killing it in business for years before we even knew what business was. So that's a pretty simple answer for me.
Yeah, I think you covered it. It's like saying to me, like, Joe, why are you so shit at convention? Why is your powerlifting total so shit? It's like, well, because I don't give a fuck about it. It's that simple. I don't need to flat bench, I don't need to barbell squat, I don't need to conventional deadlift, and therefore, like, it's not something that I hold close to my heart or something that has any impact on my life. I think if Tom was sat here and we'd answered that Darren question about business and bodybuilding, he would be even further on the side of business.
Mm-hmm.
It would go business, bodybuilding.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, that kind of answers the question. So yeah, there is a clear answer. I don't think it even needs to be. As you said, Tom even wouldn't care. He's been open with that, hasn't he?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, I got one here. Realistically, when do you respectively think you'll both be Olympia worthy?
So I have realistic expectations on myself. Like I said, when I start steroids, if I'm not a pro within like 2 competitive seasons, like I know I kind of said I wasn't thinking about that, but like, I still have realistic expectations to not go ahead and put myself into a grave too early. If I wasn't a pro within 2 years, like, I probably haven't got the mustard for it. I probably haven't got them genetics to do whatever I need to do. I have similar expectations with going to the Olympia, to be honest. So I would expect that this year would be a pretty tall order to do it, as in this next competitive year. But if I'm not pushing towards it the next year, I would be thinking like, all right, okay, maybe I'll give this 1 more year and we'll see. Having said that, if it's like this year I get like a 10th, next year I get like a 6th, I'm like, oh, if I get like a 3rd or 2nd the year after, maybe I'll go another year. So it is a moving target, but I have realistic goals. Like I want to be on that Olympic stage in 2 years minimum for me.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think that I could also be there within 2 years, and the reason I say that, even in classic physique, is because having gone over to the States and having watched the circuit very closely over the last couple of years, I just don't think it's as competitive. And I just think I'd be interested to hear, I think I know your opinion on this, but I think that classic physique is about shape, and there are people that are winning shows and going to the Olympia without a classic shape. And if I'm able to bring a decent amount of size and a good amount of condition with the right shape and with some hopefully some decent posing, then I think I could also be there. I think I'd have to be smart about what shows I pick, to be quite honest. But at the end of the day, like, I want to be up there. So
I think of all of the categories, not to say classic's the easiest to get into, but it's the most definitive of who's going to do well, because you can see a classic lineup. Like, even I don't want to call people out, but there are people in that top 5, top 6 classic that you think you're never ever going to win because you do not have that shape. You look good. You're a small bodybuilder, you know, that looks pretty good. Obviously, they're in the top 5 of the world, but I think a lot of people can be good at men's physique. I think a lot of people can be bodybuilders. Of course, you've got to have absolutely loads of mass. But with classic, like, it is just a shape. Like, that top 3 are beautiful. Top 4, 5, 6, it quickly drops off in terms of like what the quality is for me. And I think Joe has the shape for that, and has just, like, arguably, if he can match those guys in muscularity, in condition, in posing, I do not see a world where Joe couldn't be there in that top 5 personally, just because.
Fucking top 5, man. I just want to get to the Olympia. I'll be happy with that. But it's a weird game. It's a very weird game. I think I see just so much improvements that I can make on this next prep than I could have done the last one, in terms of like managing that stress, in terms of getting a bit leaner.
Yeah.
And I think myself and Cal, having done that first prep together, now have learnt quite a lot about what it takes to get me where I need to. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see, I think. My only concern is, do I come down in body weight and realise I just don't have the size in certain areas? But we'll see.
What, for your cap?
No, I think I'll be under my cap because I was like 6 kilos under it at my lowest this year.
What can you be?
104.
104.
So I got down to 98.3, I think, this year.
Yeah. And you didn't manipulate water. You didn't try pull in.
Exactly. So I actually think we could be down to 95 maybe.
Yeah, easily.
So I think there's room. It's just a case of like when we get down there, have I got the particularly in like the hamstrings, glutes. Do the quads suck away? It's interesting because I've never really classic posed properly.
Yeah,
done the odd fucking front and back double, but they're not actually they are the mandatories, but there's a lot of other mandatories that you need to be good at. So yeah, it'd be interesting. Yeah, that's my question.
This one is how can you? This is a very good question specifically for you. How can you work a 9-to-5 job and still reach IFBB Pro level with the sad emoji? Because this guy obviously works 9 to 5. I think that's definitely a question that you can, because you've done it. You did it.
I think I answered this one on a previous podcast and spoke about it anyway. Preparation is like absolute key. The whole fail to prepare and prepare to fail is like it couldn't ring true more in a situation like this. And I would say that applies to anyone who's busy and also wants to turn IFBB Pro, who maybe, you know, can't allow their life to revolve around training. It literally is a case of like, take that low-hanging fruit in terms of like, how can I set my day up to make it as easy as possible to get all the things done that I need to do? So that is, you know, eat a certain amount of food. That is cardio if you're prep. That is training if you're, you know, in the off season. And I think you just have to let it, there's no think about it, you have to let it take over your life, whether you're in a 9-to-5 or not. I think understand that if you're going to go into a prep as a 9-to-5, like, have you got a job that's going to allow you to like sink into the shadows a little bit? Because ultimately, like, your brain power is going to go, you're going to get brain fog, you're going to be tired, snappy, all those things. You're going to have to probably leave on time and get there on time. I was very lucky in that I worked in quite a flexible environment, as it were. Like, I still had a job to do, I still had responsibilities, but they're responsibilities that I was able to do. I actually think, and I've said this before, like, I actually think it was pretty good because it made me, I had my back to the wall, so I had to do the things that I had to do to get the job done. And that routine really helped as well. Like Monday to Friday, I knew exactly what I was doing at exactly what time. It was very easy. It wasn't easy, obviously, but it was very easy to stay on track. So yeah.
I couldn't do it. I can openly say I couldn't do it. In fact, I tried and I didn't do it. I worked retail, so I was on my feet for like 15,000 steps a day, which kind of killed me. But I fully, like, a huge decision of quitting that job was, I just can't do my bodybuilding like this. It killed me. I knew it would take a lot from my look, my physique. I just thought I can't do it, and it was a big sway in why I quit that job. So,
yeah, it's interesting.
I physically couldn't do it.
I think we already answered that one. Let's do a Christmas question, even though we think you're going to be hearing this somewhat away from Christmas. They're all kind of looped into one. How many days do you take off training and tracking food during Christmas, and what do you do on Christmas Day? Go mental and eat everything, or weigh out your food?
Nothing's going to change training wise. I'm going to train Christmas Day. I've got a pool. I like to get a good session on Christmas Day personally. Like I'm in off season, so I can't really just I physically can't eat enough anyway. Like that's my struggle, so I don't need to worry about what I eat personally. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So I've been thinking about this week. I've never trained on Christmas Day before, largely because, to be honest, where my mum and stepdad live, the closest gym has always been really shit, and it's not one I'd even want to go to, even if I could. And it wasn't open anyway. It's like a council gym. But there is now Nathaniel's Le Coach, which is going to be open on Christmas Day between 12 and 3. Now, I'm not sure I'm actually going to be able to go because of those hours. I think we're going up to my nan's for Christmas Day. But I'm probably going to try and train. And if not, I would just make sure I get that session in a different day. So Christmas Day this year is Saturday. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Christmas Day that's my rest day.
Okay.
So nothing's going to change for me. I'll train on Christmas Eve and I'll train on Christmas on Boxing Day, and that'll be that. So yeah, nothing will change. But normally I wouldn't train on Christmas Day, but I would just pull that session forward or push it back a day. And in terms of diet, again, I'm never ever dieting over Christmas. I couldn't think of anything worse. So I would just be trying to eat as much as I possibly can. I probably will track most of it this year, just to try and see if I can get it all in.
Yeah, you probably won't. You probably undereat.
I guarantee I'll under.
What time do you eat Christmas dinner?
Like 2.
Yeah, so you're fucked. You'll have that big meal at 2, and by 5 or 6, you're like, I don't really want to eat anymore.
I'll be screwed.
And you'll have a turkey sandwich or maybe leftovers.
Fucking hell. Yeah, so basically it'll be an operation don't lose weight over Christmas.
Yeah.
So yeah, what you got?
So why is it not, and this is not necessarily the truth, but why is it not beneficial to train chest and back together like Arnold did back in the day? I don't necessarily think that it's not beneficial. I don't think it, like, if you can manage a chest and back session in one, I've done that before, in fact, like pretty frequently, then it's fine. I think a few negatives would be like it's a lot of muscle moving. It's a lot of compound movements you got to get through. Are you going to get enough chest work in? And how fatigued are you going to be from that chest work to then carry that over into the big back exercises? I don't know whether your fatigue is going to hold you back a little bit in terms of those 2 sessions.
I actually program chest and back in the same workout for like a lot of clients, and I'll tell you how. A lot of my clients are like younger guys. They've not been training that long, and therefore like an upper lower split is the best one for them. So quite often they will do I will do a typical upper session might be, I have like one where you prioritize back and one where you prioritize chest. So like the first session of the week might be like a pec fly, followed by an incline press, followed by a flat press. Then they might go into either back or delts, let's say back first. And the reason they're going to back is because then at least the delts get to maybe relax a little bit before we go into some delt movement. But then they'll do maybe 1 or 2 back movements, so like a pull down and a row. But I think important to understand that those movements on that day won't be overly like taxing. So let's say a D handle, like a prone lat pull down, for example, and then like a single arm cable row or something along those lines. Something that's not going to absolutely tank you, and then into some delt movement. So I don't think there's anything bad with training chest back in one day at all. I think it's, for a lot of people, that's actually going to be pretty beneficial, because across a 7-day week, if you're training 5 days a week, you might be able to get 3 upper sessions in, which means let's say you do 5 sets of chest and 5 sets of back on each one. You've got 15, hopefully quite good sets across the week there.
For sure. I think people are stuck in like either a bro split, which is kind of getting phased out now, but everyone's push-pull legs. Why are you not doing push-pull legs? And like, there's no need to be doing push-pull legs. Like, I think when I first started with Cal, he had me on some mad split, which was like hamstring delts and arms, quads delts and arms, chest, back and hamstrings, like crazy. And I'm like, well, actually, why can't you do that? Of course you can. If you're recovered for each session, you manage your volume, you manage your exercises, like Joe just said there. Like, there is no reason why you can't do like chest, back, like delts, legs. Like, there's no reason why you can't do that, because all of it is, your body doesn't go, oh, it's push day. Your body just recognizes the volume and the stimulus that you're giving it. So if you're giving it enough stimulus and enough volume and so enough so that you can recover as well, like, your body doesn't know the difference. Like, you're going to grow. So. And
remember, if you're like, you're probably not, but if you are just starting out, like, even a full body split for a lot of people is a pretty good option. And that would encompass like chest, back, legs, like Josh just said, almost every body part in one session.
Yeah.
God. In one session. So, sorry, that's the Sam Pellegrino. So yeah, chest and back's fine, but I wouldn't train like Arnie does. I've seen people doing like, well, I haven't seen that many people, but like Arnold press recently. In my head, I'm like, what is that movement? You know that one?
Yeah, the Arnold press.
Like the twist, like,
yeah, just a mad inefficient press.
Terrible.
That's what TikTok's about these days. I see TikTok advice, and it's like, this is my shoulder session. It's like, start with front delt raises, then go into an Arnold press.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, so when are you going to train any other delt apart from the front delt?
Horrendous, mate.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Here we go. How important to track food when trying to bulk, or main focus on just getting it in?
How serious are you about your goal? Like, if you are, like, you can have like, I'm not like, if you're doing this as a hobby, if you're doing this as like, it's just something that you want to gain a bit of muscle. Like, I'm not like, I'm impartial to someone not counting their calories. Like, you know how much you eat per day. You eat 4 meals per day. You normally eat this amount of food. All right, just like add another half portion of carbs in your next meals. Right, you can do it like loosely like that. But as soon as you start to notice, I'm not getting stronger. I'm not recovering as well. My body weight isn't moving anymore, and you're not counting your calories, I would argue that's probably why you're not eating enough.
Yeah, I think when it comes to when you're like, number one thing, people be like, oh, I can't gain weight, can't put muscle on. It's like, right, are you tracking your food? And they're like, nah. I'm like, well, you're probably under eating then, son. Like, it's very obvious, I think. I've said this quite a lot as well. Like, my first 3 years of training or bodybuilding, I was just like on a perma bulk, and it was in the second year that I started counting my calories, and it was honestly like I started taking steroids. The difference was unbelievable. Like, it became so easy. I was like, oh my God, this is what it's about. It was like my fitness pal. So then I just felt the muscles start just packing on, which seems weird to say now, but legit.
Yeah, and also when you say like just getting it in, just getting what in? What are you getting in? Like, what that doesn't really mean anything. There's no reference point. So
no, exactly.
You got to be a little bit careful of how you phrase that. Have you lost any friends along the road of becoming a pro? For example, sacrificing not drinking, sacrificing not going out as much?
No, I don't think I've lost any friends. I've definitely drifted from like a lot of my friends, but not in a way that means we're no longer friends. Like, I'm still friends with all my boys from back home. I still see them every once in a while.
Yeah.
I think the thing is, like, everyone's got their own shit going on as well now.
Yeah,
as you get older, like, people have their commitments. Anyway, mine happened to be bodybuilding. You know, others is maybe their girlfriends, or they started a family, or they're just really, really successful in their job, so they're busy. But I still make sure I see them, and when I do see them, it's like, it's all good. But I definitely notice a difference, like, in a lot of our mindsets. Some, like, nowadays, if they're like, oh, do you want to come out? I'm a bit like, do I want to come out?
Yeah.
And obviously it is kind of kept to a minimum. So I definitely think I've been probably like excluded from invites at times, not on purpose, just because they're like, oh, well, Joe won't want to come, so they don't ask me. It's one of them ones. Maybe I'm just a wanker. But yeah, I wouldn't say like actually lost friends.
Yeah, so similar to Joe, like exactly the same scenario. I think the only time that I've lost friends is just to a mindset difference. I'm a very, like, I want to progress everything that I do. Like, I really want to like do well at everything that I do. And when I used to hang around with a few people back at home who would have the opposite, literally almost the opposite like mindset. Like, I'm comfortable here, and they'd be like, "Why are you doing that?" And they'd constantly add a weight to my basket that I didn't really want. And if you do find yourself in that scenario where something, and sometimes there's people you care about, unfortunately, like they add a weight to your basket. In fact, one of my ex-girlfriends, I won't be specific with which, but she was that weight. She didn't need to worry about money because of her parents. She didn't need to worry about progressing her career, and she wasn't very happy because of it. And it was me making her happy every day, and me trying to drag her up, and me trying to make her progress and do things for herself. And that really took my energy away from what I wanted to do. So when I noticed that people in my circle, and not just that ex-girlfriend, but I've had friends like that who have felt like I've been trying to drag them up, and sometimes, as horrible as it sounds, it's better to just snip that weight off so you can get a little bit higher, and they'll have to deal with their shit on their own time, because it's not fair on you when you work so hard for something and you've got to waste X amount of energy every single day to try and bring someone out of that hole that they're in.
I think it doesn't even need to be overly like intentional or like harsh. Like hopefully it'll naturally happen. Unless it's a girlfriend, in which case you have to break up with them. But like, if it's a friend, you'll probably just naturally drift with them.
100%. 100%.
I assume that you've got, whoever's asked the question maybe has that challenge, or they think they're losing friends, and I say it's a case of like, what does this mean to you, and is it worth losing them friends for as well?
Little pros and cons analysis.
Yeah. Because I think for us, the path's always been very clear in terms of like, this is what I want to achieve. I have to train 5 days a week to get it. That's like, and it's not even that I have to, like I want to.
Yeah.
I'd get a bit pissed off if I didn't, sort of thing. So yeah. Overall, the answer would probably be no, but we understand. Have you got another one? I'm all out of good ones.
Yeah, there's a few left. I don't know if we want to open up this can of worms, but should every set always be taken to failure?
I got asked this the other day on my story, so I'll give my answer. For 98% of people, I would say you should aim to get to failure for every single set, and the reason is because I don't think most of you know what failure is. What does failure look like to me? Failure looks like when your reps start becoming a bit shit, or you can't do them anymore whatsoever. A good example would be, let's say on a hack squat, when do you reach failure? Well, I'd say you reach failure when your form starts breaking down, when maybe you're no longer controlling the eccentric, when maybe your depth isn't as good, when your hips start pulling up off the pad, when you're losing focus in terms of bracing. What does failure on like a bicep curl look like? Probably when you start moving your body about and swinging a bit, using a bit of momentum, maybe not getting all the way up. What does it look like on like a chest press? It's probably when you start squirming and your whole body's moving. But I would argue that most people should go to failure. Those people that can and do understand what failure is, and I'd put us in that bracket for the most part, there is definitely an argument, and we've spoken about recently, that maybe failure isn't quite the right thing to do in terms of like the amount of weight we're handling now, like pressing 70 kilo dumbbells, having 6 or 8 plates on a hack squat, whatever the machine is. Like, is it healthy to be really bashing your body up? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think there's a few caveats to start off with. I think if you're a beginner, obviously don't go to failure, because you're not going to have the skill. You've got to acquire the skill first. Acquire the skill of how to lift, and once you've acquired the skill, then of course you can start pushing towards failure. I think the people who do reps in reserve, or RPEs, whatever you want to call it, very, very successfully, are people who've been training decades. People who have got that skill of, and training to failure is a skill. I'll have clients sometimes who perhaps they've been training 3 or 4 years, and they think they're going to failure, and actually they're not. And sometimes, in order for them to get to that true failure, it actually just takes a little bit of time. It does take a little bit of time. So on occasion, if the the client isn't necessarily getting too much closer to failure, and I can see what failure is. I can see what fake failure is as well, by the way. I can see when you're faking the failure, you know, when you're overly shaking your knees like this on a hack squat. Like, no one does that when they're actually trying to fail, because you want to stay safe. You're focusing on like, no, I need to not do that because I'll snap a leg or something. I'll often add a little set in here and there because it will get them a little bit more volume in, like workable volume. But other than that, like most people, like I think if you're working closer and closer to failure, like we know you're going to recruit more motor units per muscle. So each muscle has X amount of motor units. The higher you get to that ultimate failure, the more of those you have to recruit, the more muscle breakdown, the more hypertrophy you're going to achieve. So we've got to be conscious of that when you are training, which is why RP training has to be specific. When they say 7, it really means that you physically couldn't get 3 more reps. When they say 8, it's 2. When they say 1, it's 1. And you'll see that the people that do it, they do it very, very effectively because they've been doing it for years. But yeah, a little bit more on what Joe was saying then. And it's something that I actually threw in our group chat, and I kind of just thought, like, once you've acquired that skill of training to failure, you've pushed your body for, let's say, 4 or 5 years, you've acquired a lot of muscle, you've got a lot of strength. You know, while we work at super physiological rates of hormone and strength and food and all these different things, you know, your body is still your body. Like it will accumulate injury, it will accumulate detriment to the joint. You will start to lose that integrity at the joint over time. And I use the example, I appreciate there's probably many examples where it doesn't happen, but I use the example of Jay Cutler and Dorian Yates. Like Dorian pulled a bicep off his arm, pulled a tricep off his arm. Jay Cutler never had one issue. Jay Cutler did high volume. Jay Cutler never trained to quote unquote failure. He just pushed a lot of volume in and stayed quite far away from it. And I often wonder, now that we're getting stronger, talking about me and Joe, like, is it the best? And we know what true failure is. You know, what would it mean if we just stayed right around 8? Maybe we could go to 9, and then maybe we get the odd 10 out of 10 failure here and there. What would it mean for preserving our joint integrity and our ligaments and our tendons further on down the line? And also, when I talk about 8, 9, 10, that fatigue ratio gets increasingly higher as you hit 8, as you hit 9, and as you hit that 10th rep or that 10 out of 10 failure. That fatigue ratio, or stimulus to fatigue ratio, the fatigue goes really, really high. So I often wonder if we could stick to our true 8 or 9s and maybe creep in an extra set here, would we be accumulating more actual total volume because we didn't get that fatigue from that first set, but also preserving that joint integrity a little bit over time? I often wonder whether that would be the case. I've not like delved back in and took my training back to try and do that yet, but I definitely would be. I'd definitely be interested into doing it. I know that JP tried it for a little bit but failed, but that's probably more of a mindset issue, maybe a bit of an ego issue as well. But yeah, I often wonder whether when you've acquired that skill, when you've acquired X amount of muscle mass and strength, you know, would it be more beneficial to pull things back? Like I look at some of the big guys now, like no doubt 90% of them had to get really fucking strong at one point, but now they don't do that. They do much higher reps. Like Nick Walker does much higher reps and much higher volume. And I don't know, Kai Green, if he wants to, he could go bench 5 plates, but he doesn't. He pulls it back and thinks on more reps and stuff. So I often wonder whether once you've acquired some crazy strength, would it be more beneficial to pull back? So
yeah, it's interesting. Definitely, like you say, for like longevity. Yeah, it's a weird one. The other thing I was going to say as well, I think on the topic is, like, in terms of body parts, I think when I'm training, my legs definitely recover the worst out of all my body parts, or at least I notice it throughout the week. Yeah. And I think it's because in my head I'm like, I have to get as far as I possibly can to failure to get as much growth as possible. But I don't think I could train my legs more than twice a week. Yeah. I think quads twice a week is the absolute max for me, because I just don't recover in time. And that is that because I'm taking it all the way. And if I just pulled back a little bit, could I maybe train it 3 times a week? Yeah. Would that be more beneficial? Yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think more data will come out about it. But I think the goal for most people, and definitely is the goal for me, all the guys on my team at the moment, in terms of where they take a set, is like, I want everyone to be getting to a point where by the speed of their last rep on that set is slow. because they're really, really struggling. I still want it to be secure. I still want it to look like a good rep, but I want that speed of the rep to be unintentionally slow. And what I mean by that is because it's so hard that they can't move it any faster, because that is going to generate deep contractions. That's going to generate a really nice bit of actin and myosin crossover, which means the contractions they're getting are so deep and so powerful that it's recruiting all the fibers, like Josh said. So that is where I think a set really should be at least taken to, because they're what we call the effective reps, inverted commas, and they're the ones that really you want to accumulate. The ones you don't want to accumulate are like the ones, like I said at the start, where maybe your back starts peeling off the pad and you start edging into that risk, in terms of risk to reward. So
and you'll see guys, like anyone who's doing the R&R training and RP training, their RP7 is slow. It is a slow rep because it's a fucking hard rep. If you are doing an RP scale and your rep 1 is as fast as rep 7, if you're doing 10 reps and 10 is complete failure, in my opinion, that's not heavy enough. It's not strong enough. You're not doing it hard enough, and a lot of people will fall short at that hurdle.
Yeah, I think it'll be really easy for that whole RP RIR boat to get pedalled, and then we just have a bigger pandemic of people not training hard enough. Because that's still the biggest problem I see with clients, with people on Instagram, with people on YouTube, is they're just not training hard enough. They just haven't quite acquired that understanding of what intensity is yet. And that will only get worse, I think, if that isn't
definitely. I think a lot of people fall into that camp of R&R training almost as a reassurance that they don't need to train as hard, like a safety net, where they would say, "Nah, bro, you're just pushing it too hard." It's like, well, bro, I'm fucking 40 kilos heavier than you. Like, I know how to gain muscle. I know how to train. Yeah. And trust me, the guys at the top are also 40 kilos heavier than you, and they're doing R&R. Trust me, they're training fucking hard.
Yeah, definitely. Don't use RIR as like a scapegoat to not apply yourself, because ultimately you'll just find yourself under muscled, unfortunately.
Yeah. That's it.
Got any more?
No.
No more questions?
Not worth it, no.
Sound. Okay. That's it then. A fucking big old Q&A. Quick fire Q&A. We've, I think we've been going for
about an hour.
10 minutes. So, guys, we'll leave it there. Next one we will be in the new year, and Tom will be back, and we look forward to seeing you next one.
Peace, everybody.
Ciao.